What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Art of Hunting podcast. And today I've got a really special guest, a cool, kind of a different spin on the episode. My buddy Jonathan Allen, who is from Allen Wealth Management and a very knowledgeable financial guy, an outdoorsman, and somebody who is an art aficionado. And so one of the things we're going to talk about is art as an investment and get his perspective from someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So my full disclaimer on this episode is this is not a sales pitch. So he's not been sponsored to say anything
thanks,
here.
Yeah.
And I am I'm a farm kid. So the idea that people spend thousands of dollars on original art, it's just not normal to me. It kind of blows my mind. And so the questions that I'm going to ask today are not loaded questions. We're literally going to get into art and even some other collections as a legitimate investment. So
can't wait, man. It's going to be great.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah. So I grew up here in northwestern North Carolina, ended up going away to school and ended up starting my career in New York. And so I have 2 degrees in accounting and was working for Ernst & Young. Realized that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I ended up making a transition. And I went to night school at NYU and started taking some classes and ended up transitioning into financial planning, investment advisory type stuff. So came back working at Allen Wealth Management, and then also we've been affiliated with Raymond James for a while. But it's been a great fit. I love what I do. I love talking with people, kind of making people, helping people fulfill their dreams, and also helping them really kind of have the right perspective on money. That's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I find that if you find out what people are passionate about, you can really figure out what their dreams are pretty quickly. And so for me, we've talked about it before. I really enjoy being outdoors. I'm passionate about that, and also just beauty and things. And so this was a really cool opportunity. So I want to thank you just right on the front end because I'm excited about seeing where the conversation goes.
Yeah. It's funny because we'll meet up and go to lunch every now and then. And I'm the creative one, but I'm also, between Kim and I'm like the money guy. I'm the one that's more of the business environment.
Right, yeah.
And so we'll sit down and you'll be like, hey man, what art projects are you working on? I'll be like, hey man, what's the Dow going to do next week? Are we going into a recession? Yeah. You're in the financial world so much and want to know what's going on in the creative world.
Yes.
And I'm surrounded by paintbrushes and crayons. And I'm like, hey man, what's the S&P doing today?
Yeah.
You got a hot stock tip
right.
today,
I think we're both peeking over the fence into each other's worlds,
Like my world sucks, your world's awesome.
It's funny. I think there is some serious FOMO that people have, just trying to hey, what's going on over here, and what's happening. So it's foreign to me because of everything that I do every day. Some of the things that you deal with and some of the questions that you get asked and all that stuff is, it's pretty cool just to kind of peek into your world too.
Yeah. So first thing, you got to tell people about your trout, your monthly trout.
Yeah.
Where that started, where you're at, what the streak is.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm part of a group called C12, and one of the things that we do is we get together monthly and we end up kind of checking in with each other on different aspects of our life. So there's all sorts of different health and fitness, walk with God, marriage and family, all that kind of stuff, and looking at where you are. And one of the categories is rest and retreat. And I realized that I had done a pretty poor job of rest and retreat and also fun and recreation. Those were 2 areas that I just hadn't done very well on. And so about 3.5 years ago, I took up a challenge, and that was to catch a fish every month of the year. And I know it seems super nerdy, but for me, it's helpful because I realized if I hadn't been outside, I start to kind of become a hornet, as my wife says. I get maybe not as fun to be around. And so for me, having a regular cadence that I go out and just enjoy being outside, standing in the river, observing what's going on in the world around me, there's something freeing about that. And that just helps restore my soul and just what I'm doing. And so for me, fishing is almost like meditation a lot of times. And I love going with people. I know you and I've been some. I love taking new people, but being able to see just the beauty that's around us, especially in the changing of the seasons. This is one of the few places you can fish year round. And especially for trout, that's awesome. I love it. And so I caught my mayfish a couple days ago.
Okay.
So that's positive. So I am, I think I'm 41 months in, I think at this point. Yeah. So
Was there
exciting.
ever a month you barely made it?
Oh yeah, there's
Really?
been a lot. There's definitely been a lot. Actually, I thought so. March of 2021, I think I was getting down to the last weekend, and I thought for sure I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
But I caught this fish, and it's kind of a crazy story, just really quickly. But I caught this fish, or I went out. It was very, very flat and calm, and it was very transparent. The fish could see me really easily, and I was wearing this really stupid blue sweater. It was super stupid. But I looked in the water and I thought I saw something, and there was this little orangey pinky thing floating in the water. Have I told you this, by the way? Okay, so there's like a little orange pinky thing. I'm like, is that a trout? Like, what is that? And so I look at it. I'm watching. I had some polarized sunglasses on so I could see it. And so I was like, I think it's a fish, and it moved like a fish. And so I put a dry fly over it. It floated over a couple times. About the third time, I got it. Pulled out this really nice rainbow. When I pulled out the rainbow, I noticed that there was like this huge gash on the top of its head and behind its gills. And I was like, gosh, what kind of wasting disease or something? But it was still bleeding. It was the weirdest thing. So I released it, put it back in the water. I took a picture with it. But what's crazy is about 5 minutes later, on the other side of the water, I see an otter. And so I think I caught the luckiest fish in the world that time, because not only did I probably disturbed the otter feeding on this fish. Somehow the fish got away, and then I caught it. It's like, it's not the craziest story. So people think I make it up, and then I show them the picture, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then the video of the otter running across on the other side of the water. It's the craziest thing. But those are the kind of things that, like, you can't make that up, you know? Yeah. And so for me, that's part of what keeps me going. Yeah.
So had you been fishing a lot that month, or just been busy?
No, just been busy. And like, that's part of the reason I realized having the monthly rhythm, by requiring you to do that, like, you're forced to go outside. And so for Stephanie, my wife, like, she realizes very quickly, like when I start getting like a twitch or whatever, she knows. She's like, oh, you need to go outside. You need to go do this. And so that's really helpful to me. I think my marriage is better because of it. Just because I'm able to get outside and go do whatever, go fish. And even if I don't catch anything, I'm able just to be outside walking up and down the streams. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a factor? Did you fish? Have you always fished like that, or was that something you've picked up?
Something I picked up. Yeah. Okay. So you can believe this or not. My father took me fishing occasionally. We went hunting occasionally. Always, we had some farmland in Mississippi. We would go shoot and do stuff like that. And that was great. But I was never a huge fisherman, hunter, outdoors, until college. And then in college, it's kind of a long story, which I'll spare you the details of, but I got into it in college. And so I started fishing, really my last year at Ole Miss. I was fly fishing here and then was down at Ole Miss, and, it was just great. It was a lot of fun, got into it and then kept it going. When I got my first job in New York, the first serious purchase that I made as like a grown up, was a fly rod. So really? I got my fly rod outfit that I still fish with today. I have some other rods, but that's one of my favorite, just because it's been with me pretty much everywhere since the beginning.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you get into art? Because I know, and I want to understand, you collect like rare coins and stuff too. You're into some things outside of the financial world.
Yeah. So without sounding too pretentious or stupid, the thing that I'll tell you that I think art and coins and being outdoors has in common is that I think it has to do with beauty. I've really thought about this a lot. Like, I think for me, coins are kind of like public art, if you want to think about it that way. So you look at a St. Gaudens $20 gold piece, like, that's pretty much artwork, right? It's just public. And so if you look at what that looks like, there's some real beauty behind that. For me, like, I certainly haven't been collecting art long, but I know what I like, and I know that that's one of the reasons you and I got connected. But for me, a lot of it is about seeing the beauty in things that are represented, specifically in nature. Like, I love being outdoors. And so for me, that's something that's unscripted. It's beautiful. It's wild. You can't tame a trout, right? And so being able to kind of have that culmination of art, and for me with coins, I've thought about art and history and money kind of all wrapped up in one little object. Like, there's a lot of boxes that checks for me personally. Yeah. And again, not that I have like some huge collection or anything, but it's just, for me, there's a lot of passion and enjoyment in it. And I would say with art, as Stephanie and I have gone through, we realize that there are certain moments in time that kind of help us remember our life as we go through and look at artwork, right? And so I think about like last year, so at Seawee, when we ended up coming down to Seawee, like it was super exciting for both of us to share that with you, to share that with others, and like have these things that every time I look on my wall and I see those 3 trout, like I'm like, yeah, like, you know, like, so for me, a lot of it is remembering, and they're like visual representations of either moments in time or things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you look for when you buy art? We were having that conversation with Cassie earlier about stuff, and the reason that I'm asking is, I had something unique happen this year at Seawee where people buy art for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Somebody just loves it. We've never met them before. They just love it and they buy it. Some people they start buying my work or another artist and they continue to collect. This year, somebody came up to me at Seawee and said, you know, we've collected this artist and we have a Bateman and we have a this, and this year we're buying one of your pieces. And they come up and they just look and they buy from the artist for the artist. But I'm curious, like, what, you just like it, or do you buy for the artist, or
you know, I would be I'd be lying if I said I didn't buy some for the artist, right? Like, I mean, like especially if you have a personal connection with them, if you and I have been out fishing, or if there's some sort of something really special about it, like, certainly that's going to enter into it. I would say generally though, my experience in getting started was a whole lot more about just seeing objects of beauty, and just it's for whatever reason something really gravitates towards, or I really gravitate towards something. I think for Stephanie, I think that's probably true too. I'll just tell you, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but so Stephanie and I, in some of the travels that we've done, a lot of times we'll end up realizing that rather than buying some tchotchke, we'll end up looking for artwork. And the reason is because it reminds us of that place. It reminds us of something beautiful and something that we can't see, or some person that we can't ever see again. And so like one of the things that we ended up doing when we went to Greece, we found this small little weird round painting, and it was just beautiful. It's kind of abstract. It doesn't really fit in with anything that we own. It's very small. We put it like in a Ziploc bag, I think. But, it's kind of funny. When we moved, I think that's what we did with it. But now it's sitting on our wall, and it reminds me every time of Naxos and like my family going there, and the memories that we shared, how blue the water was, that kind of stuff, because the painting's blue, right? Other things I'll say, like I think we've talked about this too. We love going to St. John. I had a client who actually went on vacation there. She painted some things. And so I have this little really small painting that she painted from like in the 60s or 70s of this little image of St. John. And it's just beautiful because I can see the bougainvillea and I can see the blue of the water. And it's just, for me, knowing that someone who was there who appreciated it, painted it. Yeah. And then also seeing like what she saw the beauty, and I see the same beauty, right? And now I can kind of see it through her eyes and artwork. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different way of thinking about it, but I think that mainly the reason people get into it is they see beauty. Now, what I'll say is from that, like their appreciation grows, and maybe they develop a relationship with somebody, or a lot of times, sometimes I think people get into it for it's like a collector, or kind of showing off and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's that's an element, right? Yeah. And so because of that, I think you see some people get into it that way too. But I think how most people get into it is they see something that's beautiful to them, they're attracted to it, and that's why. Yeah. Personally.
What was the first piece you ever bought after your fly rod?
Yeah. This is actually a great story too. For me, I went on a street fair in New York City. So and sometimes in the summertime, they'll close down the avenues or the streets, and they'll basically have like an avenue entirely walked off, and you can walk through and you get, corn on the cob grilled on a grill, and they have all sorts of little markets, and each neighborhood has everything. So I was newly living in New York City. I was walking up and down. We were probably somewhere around Washington Square, because there had to have been art students there, because I ended up with going through a bunch of canvases, and a lot of them were not even like, they weren't stretched or anything. It was just, some art student or something. Yeah. And so I didn't have anything in my apartment. I mean, like literally I had like a cardboard, I had a folding table and like a blow up mattress. And so I was, I'm trying to grow up here, have my first real place, a fly rod, and nothing else, And so I remember I was walking down the avenue, and I saw some things, and I was like, maybe I'll just look over here and see if there's something that appeals to me. And so I ended up finding in that pile of stuff, I found like 2 pieces of art. Yeah. And again, there was nothing special. Were they? One was just a scene. It's almost like this European Cubist city type deal. It's kind of weird, but I thought it was pretty and I was drawn to it. The other was like a kind of an ocean scene, and the colors I liked and some of that stuff. So yeah, it's just, again, I would like to tell you that there was something brilliant behind it. It's not. It was pretty, and I wanted to have it on my wall. Yeah. And so over time, that was really the first thing. And then since then, it's not that, again, not a huge collector, but over time I've tried to buy what I like and what I think is beautiful, or something that represents something to me.
Yeah. So you obviously are an investment guy, and I can't imagine that. Maybe you don't. Yeah. I don't know if you do or not. I'm not trying to lead you into anything, but when you buy something, do you think of like the long-term value of it?
Of course.
Okay. But like, are you, I don't know, like maybe you just, everybody talks about, vehicles go down in value. This goes down in value. Do you literally buy art thinking of it going up in value? Is that a consideration?
Well, I'll say this. So the way, one of the things we've kind of talked about just briefly before this is like how art is valued and what that looks like, right? And so, art definitely is in the eye of the beholder. And so what I would say is, in a free market system, what a willing buyer and a willing seller will pay is what the value is, right? So for me, I'm half the equation. When I think about my artwork, I think about I'm half the equation. Okay, so if I'm a seller of artwork at some point in the future, I know that I'm not going to sell it for any less than what I paid. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so there's some, and that may be a really simplistic approach, but the way I think about it is because that's value to me. If I buy one of your paintings, I know, to me, for whatever reason, it represents value. And so for me to part with that, I'm going to have to really, really know that I'm being compensated for what it means to me sentimentally. Yeah. So in that respect, I would say, I do think about it. And I think that my art specifically, I think will hold its value. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been true over time. Some of the things that I've seen in trying to do, trying to come up with the values for insurance purposes or whatever, I think that's been mostly true. Yeah. I don't know that I've got like an up to market analysis on it and looking at it, but I would say I think that's partially true.
I want to touch on the insurance thing.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
But how is it? One of the guys, I follow a guy named Mark Maggiore on Instagram. He's amazing. Yeah. And he's got like all the artsy stuff. He's foreign, has an accent, like wears cool clothes, has all the stuff, right. And his career has taken off tremendously. Mm-hmm. And he posted something on Instagram I saw one time where he had sold a painting for like $13,000 and recently, a few years later, it auctioned for like $500,000. Wow. And obviously he doesn't see any of that money, but how does art appreciate? Like, how does art appreciate? Yeah. Like, I guess to your point earlier, a willing buyer and a willing seller, and then 3 years later, the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, so I think there's a bunch of different theories on this, and what I'm getting ready to say is my opinion. But I think that a lot of it is, so if you think about what drives demand in artwork, and this is true for coins or other collectibles, guns, things like that, a lot of it's scarcity, right? Like some of it's scarcity. So if you think about, if you have a piece of artwork that you are really passionate about or that you love, as other people see that, as other people start to see what you either have created or either what you have bought and something you saw, I think that's where some of that value comes from, because people start to ascribe value to, like, maybe you were the first to see something of value, but then other buyers will come in and they'll be like, man, this is really worth something, right? This, and so they're willing to pay up for that. It's just you had the first move on this, and I think, and again, I don't know your world as well as you do, certainly, but to me, it would seem like as you become more well known, as you become, as you perfect your craft, and as you do it, it certainly seems to me that there is, you start to gain more of a following, and people certainly gravitate more to your work. Yeah.
What about the artist dying? What everybody says.
Scarcity, man.
Scarcity.
That's scarcity. If you think about it, the artist dying, I mean, like that's it. That book is closed. So, there probably is some truth to that. Yeah. To the fact that if you have a finite resource and you're not as prolific, or if you're not producing anything anymore, then there probably is some truth to that.
Yeah. I joke that I'm gonna fake my death all the time. Like, and end up in Montana somewhere.
Yeah, right.
So what about like the insurance? Do you have insurance? Do you have to specifically insure your art collection, or is it?
It really depends on the value that you ascribe to your artwork.
Yeah.
So if you think about like normal property owners insurance, like there are some things that are covered, but it's going to be subject to certain limits, right?
Yeah.
And so part of it ends up being like, what do you ascribe the real value to be? Also, if you're an artist actually doing it, like you're basically have trade and business stuff. So you need to have totally different insurance than if you're a collector. And so in my mind, that's one of the things that I would just encourage you to think about. One thing that I did, and this is kind of a side note, but I think it leads in the same direction. So I bought a violin a couple of years ago. I play violin, and I was in Nashville, and I ended up running across this violin. It had its awesome sound, I thought, but it was this old violin. It was expensive for me, but I bought it, and I ended up getting a separate insurance policy for it. And so it's like there's like riders that you can get onto your property and casualty. So the deal is, if you have like an appraisal, that's one of the big things that's going to come up, is that you need to think about when you're valuing these works of art, or when you're valuing an instrument or coins or whatever, like where's the third party verification? Like where's the appraisal for that? Because that generally is what they're going to determine your premiums on. That's what they're going to determine replacement cost, or however they choose to value that. So those are some of the things that when you think about it, if you have a really big collection, like, you probably want to itemize out what it is. You probably want to document provenance and all that stuff. And then you probably also want to know, hey, is my homeowner's going to cover it? In most cases, if you have a really nice piece of art, it's not. Yeah. It's going to be excluded. And so you want to probably insure that separately through some sort of like inland marine policy or something.
Who appraises it? Like, how would an appraiser start?
I think it really depends. Like, so I've got another client who's really into cars, and he loves antique cars. And so there are specialty companies for really particular assets that will do that. Yeah. And so if you're like a car collector and you're doing it, or if you have works of art, there are probably specialty insurance, especially for like really high end stuff. You really want to make sure that you have it covered. It's not that you couldn't go to like your normal insurance broker and probably find it, but you really want to make sure that what you have, especially like as it increases in value, you want to make sure that you have a ton of, you want to check all the boxes in terms of, paying the right premium and making sure they don't nickel and dime.
Like Antiques Roadshow?
Yeah, like Antiques Roadshow.
That'd be sweet.
That'd be awesome, man. Wait until you die, and then you end up getting, somebody gets all this money, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've learned that too, and we obviously have a different setup now.
Sure.
But the way I learned that the first time is when I was running my whole operation out of our basement, essentially. And that's how a lot of people start.
Yeah, sure.
Just spare bedroom, a bonus room for prints and frames and stuff, and then an office for design work. And we were renewing our insurance, and I asked like how much our stuff was covered for, and it was like $5,000 was covered under homeowners, and I'm looking at a Mac computer that's $5,000 plus all of my stuff. Right. So then we had to get a separate like business in the home to cover stuff. But I know it can kind of get like funky there, because if this place burns to the ground, usually I am insured for the materials. Right. Okay. Yeah. So like that original oil painting, I might not be able to get the sale of it, but if it burns down in your house, you get what you bought. Right. And that's something I learned from Sam is when tax deductions happen, it's a transfer of money. So if I create something, the only thing I can deduct in it is like my paints and canvas and frame, not my time. Right. But if you buy it, you exchange money, and so you can get reimbursed for the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you start talking about insurance, you really want to make sure you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed, because man, if you have some sort of catastrophic loss, like that is bad news. Yeah. Yeah.
So what other kind of stuff do you collect guns at all?
Not really. I have some guns, but none of them are really super valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Does most of these principles apply to like all kinds of different collections?
Yeah. I would say that most of it, like in the tax code, falls under collectibles. Okay. Right? So whether it's coins or guns, artwork, that kind of stuff, like most of it's going to come under some sort of collectibles, which, a lot of people probably know this, but some may not. A lot of it's going to be taxed at higher rates than, say, like a stock and bond portfolio.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like the collectibles rates are going to be much higher than, say, a traditional stock and bond portfolio. So that's where you run into stuff like if you start thinking about, other kinds of assets. Other kinds of assets have different tax implications when you go to sell them. And so, yeah, so like it's really, when you start talking about artwork, especially, like this is where you can really make some mistakes. And so you want to be careful about how you're not only valuing it for insurance purposes, but like, hey, if you had to sell it, what's your basis? What are your gains? And then how are those gains actually taxed? How do you report them on a tax return? Who reports them? Where does that all happen? So that's where you really, you can get into a lot of trouble if you don't know.
How would you do that?
It depends. I mean, so I would say that for a lot of people, if you just buy and sell something, it's kind of like going to a gun show. I would say, like, it depends on, it's up to the people about whether they report it or whether they don't. Yeah. If you do like an auction house, chances are you're going to end up you're going to have some 1099 that gets sent to you from the auction house, and you're going to have itemization, that kind of stuff. And so like anytime you get a 1099, understand that somebody else sent a 1099 to the IRS. And so if you don't report that, that's going to be a flag to the IRS about not reporting income or not reporting the proceeds or whatever. Yeah. So that's some of what you just got to be careful about when you get into artwork.
Yeah. Does it transfer like in an estate? Can you just like take a painting and leave, or does that have to be like recorded somehow, like in an estate, like land or a house?
So it falls under personal assets. So generally it doesn't. So most artwork, I would say, probably goes through the probate process. So that's the court-ordered administration of an estate. Okay. So it's public. It can be very time-consuming, costly, and especially if you have artwork that's worth something, just like with guns or anything else, it can actually you can pay a fee to the probate court to transfer it. A lot of people think they're being really wise when they just go in and like, grandma's getting ready to die and they'll just take it off the wall and then they don't tell anybody, right? The problem ends up being that if they gave it as a gift or something, let's say that grandma knew that you were doing that, you inherit grandma's basis. So if she knew Picasso back in Paris and you took it off the wall and she paid $14 for it and now you're selling it for $50,000, suddenly you've got a big issue because you have some major tax implications, like almost the whole value of the painting would end up being taxed. Yeah. Whereas if you inherit the property from grandma, you probably receive a step up in basis. It's more than likely. So like your cost becomes whatever the fair market value is. So like there's probably some little nuances there that are beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but just know that like it's very easy to think you're doing the right thing just by taking it off the wall, but like establishing chains of ownership, especially if you have intentions of selling it, like that's all part of like provenance and all that stuff that you're looking at.
So chances are they would inherit it. You'd get that stepped up basis, and then if you made a profit from there, you'd
pay the taxes. You end up doing it. So I mean, but again, like I would say that most people's artwork is probably not worth that. Yeah. Right. Like, and so you may not have to worry about that. It would probably just get lumped in with other assets. But as you have really nice artwork, especially if you want to pass that on to people, like that's going to be something you really have to plan for. Yeah.
Wow. What else, man? What's the book?
Yeah. So I brought this. I brought this book, and it's a book I read several years ago by Michael Mendelsohn. It's called Life is Short, Art is Long. What he did, he's a collector. He's an avid collector of stuff. And he ended up realizing that there were all these issues that were unique to collectors. And so if you're collecting artwork, or in the case of him, I think he did some furniture and different stuff, there's all these different implications about how do you pass it on? What do the IRS rules say? All that kind of stuff. How do you plan for it? How do you, if one of your kids loves art and one of your kids doesn't, how do you end up passing that on to the one who loves it? Or do you pass it on? Do you give it away to charity? Like all these crazy things. And so he went through and he basically wrote this book, and a lot of it is written towards collectors, which I think is good. Some of it's written also to, I would say, advisors and professionals. So, if somebody has an advisor or some other professional that maybe they'd like to know a little bit more, this would be a great place to start, because it kind of points you to, hey, you need a qualified appraiser to determine this valuation, or you need to talk to your tax attorney, or you need to talk with your CPA about, what are the tax implications of these things? You talk to your insurance agent, make sure that you have the proper insurance. Like those are all things that this book kind of does a pretty wide survey, just in talking about some of the issues. So yeah, I think it's an awesome, really helpful book to go through and look at.
Yeah. I see that. I'm more in like the land and farm world, and we've talked about this before, but like when families are passing on land, who gets what, and like, there's always some black sheep somewhere that wants to sell real quick.
Right.
like me and my brother still hunts, but he's not crazy about it. Me, that's all I really care about.
Yeah, right.
So, like you see families passing that stuff on, but I never thought about that. Like somebody, passing along a Picasso and one kid goes crazy over it and the other one's like, this is terrible.
Yeah, let's sell it, right? Yeah, that's the other thing.
Throw it in the garage.
Yeah, and I think so. A lot of people too, just in terms of thinking about that, like there are lots of different planning strategies that if you have artwork, like you can give it to a museum, or if somebody really, if you have something that you don't just have to sell it. Like there's definitely planning strategies where you can take advantage of giving some artwork on loan, or giving it to some organization that cares about it, or letting them use it in such a way that help you unlock some of the hidden value that's there. Yeah. So like you can certainly sell it. That's one thing. But a lot of times families, especially if it's been their family for a while, or if there's some sort of value there beyond just the purchase price, then there's probably going to be like some opportunities to gift, or there's probably going to be some pretty big value there. But a lot of really wealthy families, like you see, when you go to museums and stuff, you see from the so-and-so foundation, or from this, family or whatever. And so one of the things that comes up is, why do so many families collect art? And what I'll say is, historically, it's been a good store of value. If you go back and look, one of the things that happens is that a lot of artwork has real value, and it's actually a good inflation hedge, and it has has very, very little correlation to like investment portfolios, or to land, or to coins and that kind of stuff. And so what you're seeing is, for a lot of people, it's a way that they preserve wealth in their family, because maybe their business goes under, or maybe their stock goes to zero, but they end up having land and artwork, or they, maybe they have to flee some warring country, but they can take their artwork with them. And so some of those things are like one of the ways that people like preserve the value of their name.
Yeah. So you heard it here first. Recession's coming. Alan said it. Buy art. It's the only hedge you get. The only way to protect yourself is to buy art.
See, this is good for you. So you actually want inflation, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, but it really is true that it's like an inflation.
Does that is that mainly original art, or is that anything? Is that?
I think it's mainly
prints,
original art.
Mainly original art.
Yeah, and so now there's even like subsets within that, right? So we're talking about art like very broadly.
Yeah.
But like you start breaking it down between like old masters and, impressionist, and now you have like modern. And so you start looking at contemporary or modern art, and you start seeing like there's probably those are kind of like to be really super nerdy here, those are probably like the small caps of the art world, right?
Okay.
Like those are the small, quickly growing. Some of them may still be alive. They're not quite dead long enough. We don't know exactly what their value is. Yeah. But I think those are kind of the up and coming kind of artists, right? Yeah. And so those are the kind of the new ideas and stuff that the art world doesn't have a clear value on. And so you're seeing people kind of go after some of that.
What about, there's something I heard on the radio the other day where you can invest in art. It's like a mutual fund for art.
Yeah, Masterworks. Yeah.
Masterworks. How does that?
Yeah. So Masterworks is really interesting. What they will do is they will actually buy artwork. So Masterworks is a company based out of New York, I believe, and they will actually buy artwork and a lot of it contemporary, modern kind of art. And then what they will do is they will securitize it. So they'll set up like an LLC, limited liability company, and they will do a securities and exchange filing, so the SEC filing, where basically the only asset of this LLC is this work of art.
Okay.
And then what they will do is they'll basically say, okay, we have, depending on the value, we have 50,000 shares of this $1 million painting. We're going to sell them for $20 a piece, something like that. And then what they will do is they'll go to the public and they'll say, do you want to own a piece of this artwork? And if you want to, you can actually buy it. The thing you have to be careful about with this is that even though it's securitized and kind of acts like a mutual fund, you don't have liquidity. So like a lot of mutual funds, you have daily liquidity. ETFs, you have interday liquidity, that kind of stuff. When you start getting into this kind of stuff, these are mainly geared for people who can stand periods of illiquidity. So like if in terms of liquid assets, you want to make sure you have plenty of cash on hand because it may be years before you're able to sell those. Before they sell that work of art.
So they'll set up an LLC around one work of art.
Yeah.
and until that sells, you cannot sell your shares.
Well, so there is a secondary market. So like if let's say that I did it and a couple of years from now I run into a pickle and I'm in a cash crunch and I need to sell some of it. If that's the case, there is a secondary market for it. So that means I could come to you and you could buy my shares if in that artwork if you wanted. But when you have a market like that, it's very thin is what it's called. That means you don't have a lot of buyers and sellers, so it's not guaranteed that you can sell your shares.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of returns do they get on that?
I mean, if you look at historically, and I don't have it in front of me, but I would say historically it's very good returns.
Yeah.
And some of that may be, it's a relatively new idea, but I think from the numbers I've seen and from what I've seen, the returns are comparable to, and maybe even better in some cases than other asset classes.
Huh.
So yeah, and if you look at other collectibles, things like fine wines, violins, they in periods of inflation tend to hold their value and maybe even increase. And so the biggest advantage that I see as like an investment advisor, the biggest advantage that I see is that with like Masterworks is that they're kind of democratizing something that used to be just for super duper wealthy people, right? Like the Rockefellers and stuff. So I think that's something to me that's really encouraging. The other thing that I would say, though, is that it's a non-correlated asset. So something that doesn't move in tandem with stocks and bonds.
Okay.
And so if you're looking to kind of break that cycle of something that's different than stocks and bonds, having something like that would be really, to me, is a way that you can gain a non-correlating asset.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I never even thought about this till you were talking about it. My mom was a postmaster in our hometown. And inside of it was right along the Mississippi River, but inside they had like a giant mural up in the post office. Yeah. And I remember now that was one of they started hiring tradespeople and artists.
Like WPA or something, yeah.
Like, what do they call that?
WPA, it's like works.
Public Works.
Public Works, yeah. So, and they would hire artists to like decorate these public buildings, yeah.
And it's super cool
because
it was really well done. And then, I don't know, like every decade she'd have to come in and they'd hire people to restore it up on the wall and clean it and everything like that. But I don't know, it's kind of fascinating to me how art and the economy work sometimes differently and sometimes together. Sometimes it's cause and effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I echo that. I think it's one of the things that I love to do, like in our post office here in town, one of the things they actually have like a picture of Daniel Boone and some of that stuff. And, and I'm not sure when that was painted, but I've got to imagine it's got to be around the same time that you're, and just, the interplay between like artwork and seeing and kind of what it represents at certain moments in time has got to be pretty cool.
So can you borrow against art?
So you can actually borrow against art too. And so this is another way that some people will unlock the value of artwork. A couple of years ago, I took some classes at NYU, and one of the classes that I took was related to unlocking the value in artwork. And one of the things that they talk about, so there are some specialty firms, a lot of them are like with big banks like a Citigroup or Credit Suisse or somebody like that, but there are a couple breakaway firms. One I think is Fine Art Capital, where you can actually go. And so what you basically do is they will collateralize a work of art. So let's say that you have a Picasso and you actually you need money to buy something. They will establish the value of that. And a lot of times they'll take possession of it. But without selling it, what they will do is they'll loan you a certain percentage of the value. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's kind of the idea. Yeah. They know you have an asset of value. And what people will do because of taxation and those things is rather than selling it and paying the taxes and losing control of the asset, what they'll do is they'll loan it, and the banks will actually loan against the value of that particular work of art.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a very, very, very specialized field of finance.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, when I took those classes was after the tech bubble bursting and before the great financial crisis. So it was like this period of time where money was probably pretty loose and pretty easy to get. I would imagine that as things get tighter financially, that they won't be as willing to loan on some of that, as the cost of borrowing goes up, and it might be a little bit more expensive to do that. But, again, if you have a work of art, like that's a way you can unlock value without giving it away or paying taxes on it. That would really help you maybe unlock some of the value from a monetary perspective.
Huh.
Yeah.
What about there was a craze, why can I not think of this? It was digital art.
Yeah. Are you talking about like NFTs and stuff like that? Yeah.
NFTs.
Yeah.
So, and as part of my business, I've had to learn copyright law and IP and all that kind of stuff. And I got approached a bunch of times by people wanting me to offer NFTs of the work. And one thing that I have just kind of learned about life and economics and stuff like that is nothing comes free.
Right.
So everybody that wants to buy your NFT will tell you, well, you don't sacrifice the rights to the original or the rights to reproduce it or anything like that. It's just the digital image. And I'm like, so you're paying
So
me
what are you really buying?
You're paying me like $50,000 worth of Bitcoin for nothing, just to hold a digital image on your phone. And it's like, are we playing Zelda here? Like, is this some little, I don't even understand any of it. So, I don't get Bitcoin either, but like, talk about that.
Yeah. So NFTs, I'm going to tell you, I am a little bit befuddled too, because like NFTs to me, one of the reasons that there's value in a lot of artwork is because of scarcity, right?
Yeah.
And so if NFTs, if you can own the same thing that everybody else owns, it's kind of like a baseball card. Like you have the exact same thing that everybody else does. Yes, you might be able to do something with it, but for me, I don't know, other than bragging rights, what the real allure of NFTs is.
The only thing that I could think of, if I was going like hardcore 2045 businessman, is if you buy all the NFTs, you may be able to sell an NFT display. Where like I sell you the Ryan Kirby display, and it rotates through all the digital NFTs, and maybe that's a thing. Like the little photo. Yeah, we're getting real weird here.
So you would have like a rotating Ryan Kirby's is what you'd basically have in your house. Or
whatever. But if I sold all my NFTs to something, and we're going like Jetsons here, like future world. Yeah. Well, I sacrificed my right to those NFTs. Well, what if the way of the future is putting a frame around your NFTs and NFTs rotate a display?
Maybe, but I would say, so is it, again, just thinking the other side of the coin here. So if you had the original and I took a picture of it, does that count as an NFT? I mean, is it a picture because it's digital? I don't know either. Yeah, I don't know.
That's what never made sense to me, but I didn't buy into the where you're not giving anything up. We're just giving you $50,000, and it's like no, you're getting something.
It seems too good to be true.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm
so like, I mean, in a way, it seems like that seems too good. But it seems like if you're the artist, if they're buying the Ryan Kirby stuff, like to me, it seems like you're getting the better end of the deal, though, right?
In the short term.
In the short term, but I don't know why people would. To me, I don't understand. Other than bragging rights. And that you have an NFT, I don't understand why people would want it. Yeah. Personally.
There'd have to be something of value 20 years from now in that NFT that we're just not seeing right now. Yeah. Because then as an artist, you could screw yourself by giving up the NFTs. Yeah. And now I'm sitting around with all these canvases nobody cares about.
Right. Maybe. I guess maybe, but I would just say, so like if you can go see your work of art in New York and you can go anywhere in the world and see the same work of art because it's an NFT now. Like, then where's the value in that? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I would say that's one thing that that's kind of like the meme stock stuff. I just don't understand. Like, I think it's a lot of hype and easy money, and to me, it seems a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. Maybe I don't understand it, but it just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I kind of thought so too. But I'm a little bit old school about stuff like that. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that old school works, right? Like generally it's been through kind of bad times. And so, like, there's this expression Warren Buffett talks about that when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? And so I would end up saying that like when the tide goes out on NFTs, like maybe they are going to work. Maybe everything's going to be fine, but you're probably going to realize what the shortcomings are. And not that we've had that yet, but it just, to me, that's kind of where I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure.
I don't know, man. Do you collect anything? So I know you personally, I've been to your place and you have a lot of, it's mostly natural stuff, some wildlife, some fish. Do you guys collect anything else?
A lot of landscapes. Really. Yeah. I mean, we have some landscapes. Again, a lot of that's just drawn back to beauty. Yeah. And looking at things. And for Stephanie and I, that's one of the things that we've really tried to gravitate towards. Again, some of the artwork that we bought, maybe not paintings necessarily. We have some wood carvings from Indonesia that we bought when we were there. A lot of that's just a function, though, of our time there and the people that we met. I have some stuff from some other like wood carving stuff and small really like figurines from India, but it's not, if somebody came in, they'd be like, you bought this at an airport, that kind of stuff. Or you bought it at a Pottery Barn or something. So it's probably not, I don't know that there's anything of value quite like that, but I think for me, a lot of it is about remembering things. It talks about in the Bible, Jesus said, where your treasure is, your heart will be there also.
Yeah. For
us, a lot of it is like our treasure is being outside. Our treasure is seeing beauty, remembering people that we've come in contact with. Artwork is an expression of that. Yeah. And for me, that's like when I see things on my wall, it reminds me of, oh, that looks like home, or that looks like a place that, we took a great hike, or this is something that it's just beautiful. And that's something that we think about. I think the other thing that was really cool when we were at CB last year, that I'll mention to you, we had an artist who we really liked his art, and we ended up buying some of his artwork, and then we found out he was at CB, and so it's kind of like what I did with you. Like I kind of Facebook stalked him, and then ended up going out and I was like, hey, I really love your artwork. Let's talk, and so it was just cool to have a conversation.
What was his name?
Go through. Jeremy Sams.
Jeremy Sams, that's right.
Jeremy is really talented, and I really, for me, I love the way he looks at things, and some of the things that he's done have just been incredible.
Yep.
So I love his perspective on things. He also has just some of the way he uses light and the way that he talks about how his faith has kind of oriented a lot of his artwork too, and just some of the trials that he's had to walk through. It's just a great encouragement to me. And when I see it, so, behind these, really beautiful things, there's a deeper story. And I think that that's one thing that gravitates to me about his artwork. There's some other things, just kind of dumb luck. I look at some of the other artwork that we have in the office or whatever, and what I realize is it's just kind of dumb luck. A lot of it we just bought, and we thought it was cool, or we liked what it looked like. And then we kind of heard the story behind it, and we gained a deeper appreciation. So, it's probably a lot like, not to be too shallow here, but it's probably a lot like marriage. Like you go into it kind of for one reason, and then over time you kind of develop a multifaceted approach as you develop your relationship with somebody or friendship or whatever. And so for me, I think that's part of what a lot of the artwork represents.
Yeah. I remember Jeremy's stuff. Jeremy does a lot of outdoor work, a lot of plein air stuff. But that one, it's off to the left of your kitchen as you're looking. It's a river scene. And that's one of my favorites. That was awesome.
I think the way the light reflects off the water, I think is one of the things that when Stephanie and I saw it, it was breathtaking. Like we just saw it and was like, man, that's awesome. And Stephanie and I had been, I'll just tell you a quick backstory on that piece. So we actually had another friend who was going out of business. She had an art studio. And so we had actually bought a Jeremy Sams from her as this winter scene. So you don't see many winter scenes, Yeah. But this winter scene that he had all these really great colors in it, purple and orange and all these other things that were really, it was just beautiful. And especially for something supposed to be white, it was really awesome. So we knew he liked his work. We had seen it all the time. So when this friend of ours, their studio was going out, we ended up going out and she had several other pieces by him. And that was one of the pieces. And so we bought it, and then shortly thereafter, we ended up selling our house. And so what's kind of funny about this is we didn't see that piece for about 2.5 years. And so we bought it, we knew we liked it, and then we put it in packaging. We actually had it in storage. And so it wasn't until after we moved into our house, it was like Christmas. We were opening it up. We were excited to be in our house, and we opened it up and we pulled it out. And it's just awesome.
Because you got to tell people how you downgraded.
Yeah, well, we went from a pretty large 4-bedroom, 4-bath house. That was something that went bad in the financial crisis. I got to fully own that. We had a bad investment, and Stephanie, my wife, and I bought it from the investment group. We fixed it up over time, and then we sold it when the market was right. But we moved into a 750 square foot duplex apartment, 3-bedroom, 1-bath. So I had my wife, my 2 girls, my dog, and 3 goldfish. And we were all stuck in this little tiny house for about 30 months. So
wow, yeah, it was 30 months.
Yeah, it was 2.5 years.
No wonder you had to start fishing every month, man.
It's true. Yeah, it was great, and again, we really scaled down a lot. It was good for me too, because between stuff we gave away and stuff we sold, we realized just how much junk accumulates. Man. And so we and I think why I mention that now is because like there are certain things that we love, but I think one of the things we had to do is kind of get rid of a bunch of stuff in order to realize like, hey, we love these things, these works of art.
So you didn't open that up because you didn't have the wall space to hang it.
Yeah, totally true. Yeah. We literally had no space. Like we could not do anything else.
It's kind of funny. The go-to for people, like you talk to people at trade shows and stuff,
Right.
the go-to excuse for people not to buy is, I don't have any place to put it. You know, that's like the generic thing that they all say. I'll be like, I know a guy who lived in 700 square feet and he bought it and put it in storage.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So that can always be your comeback. That'll be your fallback to it. Yeah. No, you need to buy this because you can just put it in storage until you figure it out. Yeah.
I know a guy that had way less floor space than you, and he made it work.
That's right.
But yeah, you do hear some excuses and stuff like that. But the other thing is too, back in like the 80s and 90s, people would go to like these Turkey Federation banquets, and the wildlife art print market was insane. And people would be like, I got those things stacked up underneath my guest bedroom. You know, and they really do. They might have like 8 pieces stacked up underneath there.
That's nuts. Yeah, no, I had no idea.
But it's crazy to me, again, like you just learn as an artist, you come into contact with a lot of people who are very high net worth.
Yeah, sure.
You just do, and you realize there's some people that have worked their tail off and done really well. And I've had people buy originals to hang over the door in the bathroom. You know, and where I'm growing up, like that thing better be a farm implement or a cow.
Right.
If you're going to spend $3,000 on something, you know, you're not going to hang it in where I would hang like a home sweet home knitted doily. They're buying a trout scene. You know.
Well, and I'll say, you know, growing up, we had some artwork in our house, but nothing was super high end, and so. I think for me, that's been a relatively, like just feeling very blessed. Like it's a new thing for me to be able to enjoy that and have original works of art, you know. And but I'll say the other thing that I really appreciate is like it's interesting to see why people gravitate towards certain things, you know, or like where they put it, and so I've had some people who shot like. I've noticed that some people, when I talk to them, they're looking for some very specific piece to fit above a door, or for something that you're going to give, and so it's just pretty cool to see what drives people to make some of those decisions. You know, so.
And to your point, it's something we try to figure out all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes there's paintings that I don't like, I don't think they're great, and somebody else loves them.
Right.
And that's their dream painting, and I'm like, I didn't even like it. You know, I wasn't even going to frame it.
Yeah.
But you know, some people love water, some people love certain color palettes, some people love subject matter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, you know, and just for you, one of the things that, I mean, you know this, I think the first piece of art that I bought from you was that scene, the turkeys out when you had gone hunting with Shay, right? Yeah, grandfather. And I think about that, one of the things that was great about that, there were 2 or 3 things that really resonated with me about it. One was the grass and just seeing the light come through the grass. Like that was awesome. And just to think about it. The other thing is having grandfather and just thinking about what that actually, you know, kind of where we live, and just as a reminder to me of physical beauty and where this place was, and knowing that you did it, that was a real place, kind of having just a hint of the backstory behind it. So seeing stuff like that, you're right, it's just really cool to do that.
It's crazy. Like we could actually see that.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it's crazy how beautiful it is. It's not beautiful today, right now. It's raining outside. But it really is. We're really fortunate to live here in this area and have the resources around.
Yeah,
the trout streams especially.
Yeah, man. Well, and I think about too, like one thing that I realized at Seawee last year was it was interesting to me to see how the artists reacted to other people buying their stuff or appreciating their stuff or whatever. And that was something, again, I just never been around anything like that. And so to see people, it was like to see somebody buy a work of art and to see kind of the shared joy that was between some of the artists. I mean, obviously artists are making money.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that makes sense. But also just to see like an appreciation of like, hey, you worked hard on this. Yeah. And this other person who you didn't know is ascribing value to it too. Yeah. Like that's gotta be rewarding.
It really is. Yeah. And we artists are so dysfunctional there. Like all of our stuff comes out because I mean, all of us, it doesn't matter who you are. People think I'm comfortable in scenarios or on camera.
Yeah.
I want to be locked up in my studio just doing my thing.
Yeah.
And all of us have that way. And it's almost like we have to like crawl out of our shells. And dude, it's so vulnerable. It's like stuff, it's almost like you put all your things on the wall and you're like just waiting there for people to tell you if you're good enough or if you suck or if you validate. And it's so, all of our just dysfunction comes out there. And the best saying is, if we would just sell the other person's stuff, we'd all sell out.
Yeah.
Like if I just sell his stuff and he sells my stuff, we'd all sell out because we'd have no problem saying, this is the best freaking elk in this whole place. If we're talking about somebody else's stuff.
Right.
But as artists, we're all really critical. And so it's an uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
From our point.
So I have a question for you. How do you know when you get to the end of a painting? I was thinking about this driving over here. Like how do you know that you're like finished? Do you just get tired of it?
There's a few. I have found that my best work comes out quick.
Yeah.
And that the more you work at something, usually the worse it goes. And so you really.
Why do you think that is? Is it just you're overthinking it or something?
You're overthinking it. You think you just keep striving and striving and striving.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, it can get maybe incrementally better, but it's got to start. It's got to start well. It's got to have a good foundation. It's a hard thing, but when there's nothing else that when you can't add anything with the next brush stroke, you need to stop.
Yeah.
So like if you can't add something significant by keeping the work at it, you just need to stop it.
That's pretty cool.
There's a variety of ways to look at it.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But in your world, it's kind of like you can get the 9% return, or you can.
Right.
It's a terrible analogy, but like you can do, 3 more weeks of research to eke out an extra 0.25% return.
Right.
Like,
that's incremental return. Like what's the effort for that incremental diminishing
returns.
Yeah. What's the incremental value that you're adding for what you're doing?
Yeah. And it diminishes fairly quick.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so you really just try to most of the time the errors come by overworking it rather than underworking.
That's pretty fascinating.
So
yeah, it's just interesting. You were talking about being critical of work, and I can understand that because you're right. You're vulnerable, hanging stuff up, and again, you've ascribed a value to it based on whatever metric people use. But then thinking about other people coming and being like, oh, that's cheap or that's expensive or whatever, and so it's interesting because I think artists, whether they want to believe it or not, at least here, like they have a very clear indication of what their art's worth. It would seem, at least on that day for a particular piece.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's all of us artists, we sometimes, I've said it before, sometimes a spouse runs the business side, sometimes the artist does it themselves, sometimes they kind of abdicate that and let a gallery do it for them or a show do it for them. But it's always a moving target with any business really, but especially with art.
Does it discourage you? I mean, we talked about masterworks earlier. Certainly that's a different aspect. It's not the kind of the love or the passion or the beauty or whatever. That's really more dollars and cents. Does it like discourage you that exists, or is that interesting to you, or
I think it's awesome?
Yeah. What do you like about it? Like why? Like I've heard some people talk about it's like the worst thing that could possibly happen because you're like, and in a way I've thought about it, it's like I don't think you're commoditizing it really because it's still unique. It's still a work of art, right? Yeah. But how do you view that? Why do you think it's awesome?
I think that it shows that there's a financial demand for what we do.
Yeah.
And the opposite would be a nightmare for us.
Right.
And I need to hit a certain level of financial success to do more art.
Right.
And my goal with the whole business, with any investments we do, with anything we do, is freedom to create more and do more. So I don't, I probably wouldn't be an artist if I just wanted to line my pockets and then, retire at 50 or 28 and go on vacation. But
still a good goal.
Yeah. So I miss 28. But I think the fact that there is a financial value is awesome because that means we can make a living and create more.
Yeah.
I think the people that probably don't like that are probably maybe a little bit too romantic about it. Like they think that it demeans or, it's like Wall Street took over the art world.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like it's the opposite. And we did a podcast and a video a while back, and in school, there was always this like disdain for capitalism
Right.
in the art school,
Right.
you know. And I was in that world. You know?
Right.
There's like a dude with blue hair over here, and,
Right.
you know, it's art school, right?
Right.
But I've always thought, like, who do you think's going to buy your work? It's going to be a capitalist.
Right.
It's
The
going to
guys
be
in the business
somebody
school.
who's the guys in business school.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you don't need to scowl because we would always have to go and like sketch in the quad and stuff like that, and they would be scowling at the guys leaving the School of Finance over here. And it's like, dude, you need to buddy up to him because he's gonna buy your work,
man. Yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
He's not evil, you
Right.
know. And you need capitalists that also have an appreciation for the arts.
Yeah.
You know, you need the people that are titans of business, but also go to plays and buy art and stuff like that, because I mean that's what those are our clients. And so I think that well, like I said before, like you want capitalists. It's like who do you think is going to buy your art if it's not people that?
I'll tell you one thing that was really
do
encouraging
things
to
with
me. So Tom James of Raymond James, he is an avid art collector.
Yeah.
And so much so that like if you go to the national office in the office in St. Pete, there's artwork everywhere.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's amazing. And so some of the stuff that he's doing with art, specifically American art, like he has a real passion for it. And so, you know, I think about how much his wealth and what he's done has influenced some of those artists and some of the direction even American art is going. Because he really, as I understand it, he really has kind of a real taste for like Western art. And so like a lot of that kind of stuff is what I've seen that he really likes and resonates. But I think also like Native American art and other stuff.
Yep.
And so I started thinking about it, you know, in the absence of buyers or people who ascribe like value to this, like it's not just, you know, where does that go? Like if people don't buy it, like what happens to it? You know? So to your point, I mean, there's definitely, I understand why the business school would get a bad rap sometimes, but I would also say on the flip side of that, like it's mutually beneficial at times.
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So that's interesting that you like to, again, kind of peeking in each other's worlds. Like if you're in the art school, I'm in finance, like kind of looking in each other's worlds about, I guess we kind of do need each other. You know? There's something about that, you know?
I mean, I'll forgive you for throwing rocks at me, you know, in the quad, throwing acorns at me while I'm sketching the stuff, because you got to buy my work later.
Yeah.
But the Western art market is big.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
The Western art, and that's where we were talking earlier. Some of those auctions you see for $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 for a painting for living artists, that's all out.
And so I wonder, like, is a lot of that come? I mean, just with you think about like Jackson Hole and some of the stuff that go out there. Like those are people who are again mega wealthy generally, and so again, I would just go back to. Like if you're mega wealthy, they ascribe value to that for whatever reason. Maybe they're just competing with the Joneses, but that kind of validates some of what we were just talking about. You know, so here's somebody who has means, they ascribe value to this, and they're willing to pay a couple $100,000 for a living artist. You know, so you don't have to die. So maybe that's it. You just have to be around the right people.
No, I just got to start painting cowboys, and Indians. And stuff. But I think that a lot of that is like just the spirit of the West.
Yeah.
Like what was I think Forbes or one of the financial magazines was like Adventures in Capitalism was their tagline.
Yeah.
And I think that even the dude that's, you know, living in Miami starting a business, there's a spirit of like taming the Wild West, and we're going into a new frontier. And I think that kind of spirit is what really drives that market higher. You know,
and I'll share something with you too. I know you talked about one of the reasons you do what you do is so you can go and create and be free to create and do those things. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially here in the United States, like they identify with that, right? Like I would say that one of the things I love to do is I love to be creative. Now it doesn't look the same, right? And I don't have like a nice work of art that I can hang on the wall, but I would say one of the things I love doing is if I'm faced with a problem, try to come up with a way to make it like a creative solution. So there's also probably some of that when you can get somebody to think about something a little bit differently, or they see something a little bit differently. Like to me, there's real value, you know? And so there's probably, like we talk about it like it's two totally separate worlds. And I guess it is at one point, but there's probably more that we shared in terms of the creativity, you know, that maybe meets the eye.
A lot of art is problem solving. And one thing too, to your point about solving problems, but I've always said like creativity thrives within boundaries.
Right.
like I have a limited space that I have to tell a larger story on. So I have to pick and choose what I want to put. Be like, if I asked you to build a portfolio in just energy stocks in Arkansas,
Right.
you know, well, that spurs your creativity because now you got to think. Now you got to, I don't know, man, I got to work in this little niche here. They're kind of like the magic houses you have to see your way out of. Like you're given a paper clip, and now you have to think of it. It's a difference between convergent and divergent thinking is what they call it.
Interesting.
And so when you're confined and you have limited supplies of something, you have to get creative to make it happen.
That's
and
really cool.
That's probably a lot of where our world is.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the reasons that you're seeing, like we talk about the securitization of artwork. I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing alternative investments come out, because people, you know, if interest rates have been at multi-year lows and a traditional 60-40 portfolio doesn't cut it anymore for a lot of people, that's where you're seeing like a lot of institutions, like some of the Ivy League schools, go into private equity, or they're going to artwork, or they're going to other places to kind of expand their investment portfolio. So, I mean, to your point, I think I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's like a really interesting way of thinking about it, because that is another way that these institutions and endowments can actually create something or be creative about how they're going to achieve that rate of return to pay all the university professors or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't really thought about it that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I know you've got another meeting.
I do. Need to roll out shortly.
Need to roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, are you good on time? Is that good?
I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're great.
Okay.
We're great.
Good.
I really appreciate it, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah, good.
So I appreciate the book.
Keep the book. Check it out, and you know, again, it's got some interesting stuff. Some of it you'll resonate with, some of it you may not. But there's some pretty interesting stuff. Sorry, I highlighted a bunch of stuff.
I was going to read what you highlighted. I'm not going to read the rest.
That's okay. If you want it. If you don't, that's cool. You don't have to. You don't have to. So.
No.
But I thought you might be interested.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.